of April 30th. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Allen? Okay. Broughton?
Here.
Darnall?
Here.
DePalma?
Here.
Cordella?
Here.
Marshall?
Here.
Thurman?
Here. Okay, at this time we need to approve our agenda. So, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda? I think Scott had a comment he wanted to make, so. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to start the discussion. I'll make the motion to approve the agenda, but I do want to make it clear what we're talking about in closed session, in particular that we're, and this is only me speaking here, but that we're not going to be discussing Bell Ann in closed session.
Good point.
So, I don't know.
Well, I have a comment about that though, because one of the things I think we do have to talk about is some of the pricing issues, because I think that goes towards negotiations and that shouldn't be an open session.
Normally I'd agree with you, but I think that's pretty much everybody knows what we're talking about there.
No, I don't think so. And that's the problem I have with doing it. I wouldn't have any problem otherwise, but I certainly don't want the school to know what we're thinking as far as pricing goes.
Okay.
May
Well,
I
and I think-
make a suggestion? When we get into the discussion on Bell Ann, we can discuss whether or not we want to take that part into closed session or not. And as township township board members, you have the option of voting no as far as going into closed session.
I'll modify my statement.
But there's also another issue that we want to go into closed session for. So.
Right. Let me limit, I'll modify my statement. If we're going to limit the Bell Ann discussion strictly to the school's asking price, that's one thing, but I don't want to have any other discussions about Bell Ann that the public can't hear.
Well, I don't feel we should do that about the other property either. I feel anything negotiable is okay in closed session because you're negotiating, and if we have it in open, then the other party can know what we're negotiating. But if it's not negotiations, then it shouldn't be in closed session. It's just like the last time we were in closed session, we should only be dealing with the negotiations, the rest should be done in public. So I feel that with,
So
if Bell Ann should, if that part of closed session comes up to Bell Ann, it should only be negotiations. What I found out from talking to Stuart, just so the residents know, is that if we are discussing what our negotiations are and we come back, the way anything would ever be written, even if it is to purchase, and not saying we're going to purchase anything, but if we were ever to purchase a property or do anything, and it's always contingent to a final decision made in an open meeting where the residents then know what we're going to do, what's on the agenda, where they can make comments. So anytime, and I'm not just talking about land, I'm talking anytime in the future, anytime that we're negotiating something in a closed session, when then Stuart goes out and deals with it, it's always contingent, if that person accepts it, that then we still have to come back to an open meeting and do it in front of the public.
Right.
So the public then knows what we are looking at doing, and they can then talk about it, and then we make a final decision, and at that time, we could say no and back out of something.
It's just, it
That's
helps to
what's
make
doing
it
it.
clear because there was just, and it's nobody's fault, it's Kathy, it's not your fault, but based on the way the agenda read, we're going to be talking about Bell Ann here, and we're going back into closed session as if we were going to finalize our decisions. I just want to make it clear we're not doing that.
And just so the public knows, we cannot make a motion and take any action in a closed session. It always has to be in the open session.
Correct.
Okay.
So just so we have the understanding that the closed session tonight is only to discuss negotiations.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a motion by trustee Broughton to approve the agenda as presented. Would someone like to make
Second.
And that is seconded by trustee Cordell. Okay, any comments on the agenda on this motion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. So the agenda has been approved unanimously. And now we can move on to citizens' comments. And if you would like to make a comment tonight, you do not have to come up to the podium. You can just stand at your seat, state your name, and make your comment limited to 3 minutes. And just please note that we have information in front of us, but we haven't discussed it yet, so we haven't made any decisions or anything that's on our agenda yet. So who would like to make a comment tonight on an item that's on the agenda? Sure.
I'm going to stand over here.
Okay.
My first question regarding the Bellan discussion is why the rush? I assume the board is in the midst of their audit. I assume that will be coming to the board in June, as it usually does. I assume we're going to get new information on the unfunded liabilities as a new actuarial is being done this year, and we haven't had one for a couple years. The board really didn't get much notice regarding the information that they're to discuss tonight. I reviewed it today. One of the things I noticed is the price of the building. Per the assessor, the asking price is extreme and prohibitive. Based on the numbers that we're getting, it's my opinion, even if we got it for $1 from the school district, it's a liability that we don't need. I mean, an additional $57,000 a year in estimated additional annual costs, as well as $1.1 million, $1.2 million, depending on what you get into once you get into construction. That's a lot of money that we don't have. I looked at the pension liabilities that were calculated the last time they were calculated, which was based on some 2014 information, but it was still in the 2016 audit. Our net pension unfunded liability is $1.7 million, and our net OPEB unfunded liability is almost $1.6 million. That's a lot of money of unfunded liabilities. And now we're talking about spending $1.2 million that we don't have. And I think as your fiduciary responsibility, you need to look at your balance sheet and deal with what it is that you need to be paying, as opposed to what what you'd like to do. And another question I have is an environmental scan, which I assume would be done if you decide to do a purchase. What's the water situation, as there's issues with the other school buildings? What are the plans for the M15 property? We paid $1 million, almost $1.4 million for that back in 2006. It's now paid off, and we've done nothing with it. And now we're talking about paying $1 million plus for something else. And my only other comment is, please look at the list of cons. It's pretty extensive. I appreciate that the committee did that, both pros and cons. And I also want you to consider our downtown. We don't have a very vibrant downtown, and I would hate to see the township leave, OTB leave, the sheriff's department leave, and leave all that empty space in our downtown. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Someone else like to make a comment? Yes.
Good evening, board. How are you? My name is Patty Salter, and I was a little disappointed that this information was not on the website today. I didn't have the opportunity, because I work, to be able to come in to find it, so I'm looking at it right now for the first time. And on behalf of the taxpayers, I would like to formally request that a return on investment be done on this project. I have templates that I could give you. Oakland County does it for all of their major projects. I see here that the total projected cost is $920,000. You usually measure that against savings benefits, every single benefit I see here is simply an intangible benefit. There's no hard dollars here. So I'd like to see, what are we saving by moving to this building and purchasing this building? What is the return on investment that we do for this $920,000? So tomorrow morning, I will send Kathy an ROI template so that you can look at it. It's very modifiable, it's very easy to do. You put in the benefits, you put in the costs, and you see when your return of investment year is. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, would anyone else like to make a comment on the agenda items?
Okay, I will. Only I know, my name is Faye Big, and I know that there's some that I can't mention because it's not on the agenda, which was my initial intention, but I, as a lifelong resident of Ortonville, am truly against this move. I believe that if you're gonna spend that kind of money, I seriously think it not, you guys are entrusted with our money as residents, and you guys as board members, I do believe need to approach more of the citizens than just saying, okay, well, we've got it negotiated down now, so we're okay, we can go ahead and spend that money, even though we may not have that money. You know, I've heard things where, well, we can't fix that because we don't have the money. We can't fix that. That might be $2,000, but we can't fix that because we don't have the money. But then, like they're saying, we're going to go spend anywhere from $500,000 to $900,000, whatever you want to talk about, to purchase a new building, and also leaving the downtown area. You know, this is a sore spot with the, you know, township and the village that everybody keeps moving out. And this is just 3 more things that are moving out and making us a ghost town. So I just think that we need to consider more of, is this something that is really necessary? And I think we need to listen to the citizens, not just what you think the citizens want. And I don't know if it's viable that maybe it go before a board to a vote, maybe, you know, on the ballot for the citizens. So that's it.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on the agenda items? Now's your opportunity if you want to be heard. Yes.
Bill Radford, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but the first flush of this is it's an opportunity that's not going to be coming this way anytime soon. I know there's dollars involved. There always is. I know the move would take it out of the village, but we're not talking about a village thing here. We're talking about a township thing, and we're talking about, I would think, something for the future. I think the dollars always have to be looked at. Yes, we would be taking some things out of the village, but I would think that this building is one thing, could be repurposed in another way. Maybe put in the sold to a taxable entity instead of a non-taxed entity, and you now have generated some money for the village. I do believe that there's monies out there available from the state for renovation purposes. There are grants out there. I look back years ago before we had a township park. We heard these same things. It's going to cost us, it's going to cost us. Yes, it's going to cost. But the development of that park came with a lot of dollars from the state. I guess my bottom line is I think it's an opportunity we want to explore. We don't want to just toss it aside. I'm glad that the board is taking it slow. I'm assuming there's already been some negotiations that I am not aware of, and most of the public is not aware of. But I, for one, I'm going to qualify this. Without knowing what the final proposal is, I would be in favor of continuing to explore it.
Thank you. Yes.
Dan Schmidt, and I can say that when I heard about this, it just makes absolutely no sense to me. Fiscally, it's a poor decision. As Cheryl rightly put the numbers, this having it presented at a special meeting as opposed to a regular board regular meeting seems underhanded. It made me skeptical from the get-go. I know when you have special meetings, you can add things to the agenda, but this is a pretty big chunk of taxpayer dollars you're dealing with, and to just throw it out here on a special meeting, short notice, what would the difference of a couple weeks make? And the public could have more information so that they can voice their concerns. And so I agree with others that I think that this is a poor financial decision for this township. They have a lot of other financial concerns.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Jan Rathford. I would like to, I don't know what you can let us know, but as Patty Salter said, if she sends you those papers tomorrow, I would like you to be able to tell us as citizens what came out of that. I don't know how you can or if you can, but it sure seems to have open communication would help.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to make a comment on the agenda items?
I'd like to make another comment.
Okay.
That may or may not have, it has something to do with something a couple people have said about things moving out of the village of Ortonville. The main reason that Ortonville, the village, has not expanded, has not moved forward, has lost stuff over the years, is a very controversial thing. I've lived in this community almost 50 years, and 50 years ago we were discussing exactly the same thing. We're still discussing it today, and that is the lack of sewers. If you look at the communities in this county, there's only 2 villages that do not have sewers. And I know for a fact in Leonard, they've been shuttering commercial buildings because of the lack of sewers. They have septic systems that have failed, and their land isn't large enough to put a new system in. And frankly, that's one of the biggest drawbacks for people moving or businesses moving in to this area is a lack of sewers. And to say we're going to lose 3 things downtown, and that's going to be a blow to the village, I think the lack of sewers is a bigger blow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last call for public comment on agenda items. Everyone seems to be quiet, so we'll move on. And we'll move into our new business, and our first item is discussion of possible action on the purchase of Bell and just maybe we should reiterate a little history on when this topic actually came up, the formation of the subcommittee to do the research, and we do have a deadline that we're trying to meet. So, I can't hardly talk. Okay.
But we can make it clear without going back and forth on discussion on public comment. We can make it clear that this has not been rushed. We've been working on this for quite a while.
It was at our board meeting in October. That was the first time it was at our board meeting. A regular board meeting was October.
Okay.
And we've talked about it ever since, at almost every single meeting. trying to get a subcommittee together, which did not happen until the end of March. March 29th is when the subcommittee was finally appointed.
Well, I do think maybe though that we just received this information is what they could be meaning though, and for us to receive it on Friday, and I almost had busy weekends, I was out of town, so I tried to go through it, but then stuff came in revised that I didn't get till right before the meeting. So I think getting this information and being able to study it is kind of a little rushed.
Okay,
because
so
it's just
maybe then what we should just decide first before we get into our discussion is, we will be making a decision at an open meeting, not in a closed session, about whether or not we want to purchase the land. Do we want to, since it sounds like the board would like a little bit more, or
That was
members of
just
the
me,
board
so.
want more time, maybe we should just make the decision that we're gonna make the decision at our next regular meeting, which is a week from tonight, as opposed to making one tonight.
Just, if I could just throw out I mean, my impression of what the subcommittee was presenting to the board was information that we could discuss in a work session.
Right,
So
that's what I thought.
So I
That's
looked
what
at this as a work session.
That's what I looked at.
and
Tonight was
so
not a decision night.
yeah,
Tonight was a
right.
night that we were going, and it was called a special meeting because we had the closed session part for the other stuff. So to
Well,
me,
it's still a special meeting even if it's a workshop.
Oh, okay.
And so the
Right.
intention
Okay.
was to have a workshop on.
So you could have ask
on
questions.
the information that we brought, so we could discuss. it.
right, that's why it's
But
that
based on-
discussion.
Yeah.
Based on this spreadsheet, though, most of these numbers we've known about for almost a couple months now. There's nothing new here. I mean, there's
There's
a
a
couple,
few
Well, and adding,
just small items.
and the senior center's
Is
new.
there some new numbers?
Not really, Chris, it's really.
No, what I'm talking about is new numbers that were not in the packet that I
Well-
called
No,
prior
no,
to
you're
your
satisfied.
Saturday.
Well, you're,
Did he,
Did
did
you
he
get
get
one?
one?
This was revised.
Did he get the
Yeah.
revised one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I picked up two earlier.
That's what I, okay, very
You
good.
did, but I was out
Just
of
wanted to make
town,
sure.
and I couldn't, and
I thought
couldn't print it
maybe
on
she
my
went back
computer.
to the
I
mailbox
was
and
in
picked
Ohio.
up something that just
Had
went
soccer
quick.
field
Scott
going.
came in and said there was an error in
Okay.
a couple of the.
And I caught the error when this is what I have from when I was.
Right, well,
I-
we fixed it, so.
Right, but
My
then numbers
question is,
changed.
since we
I
have
just thought it was
Carlos
a
Redmond
revision.
here, may we discuss at least that much
Yes.
and let her go home?
So.
Well, I think we should,
so
I think we should
with-
discuss everything and do like a workshop. That's what
Right.
I thought we were doing,
And
was
that's,
a
so
workshop.
we'll just make it clear that that's what we'll do. We'll make a decision a week from tonight at our regular meeting.
That's what we
And-
talked about.
And we talked to the school, and they gave us a certain length of time, and our time is gonna be up next Monday. So we're hoping that we will be able to reach a decision next Monday.
They gave us the deadline in February's meeting.
Right.
They asked that we not go more than 3 to 6 months, no, 30 to 90 days. So we took the 90 days.
but also with being a little bit of a sarcastic person that I am, I told them, if you get another offer, don't turn it down.
Oh,
So it's not like they're, we're
Well,
all
and
back here.
And I agree with you, Scott, 100%. And the thing that I'm still, and it's gonna be the big question. Because they claimed that they had an offer. And I still have not heard anything about that, and I don't see it in any of these notes.
Well, and
And I'm
then-
really concerned about that.
They haven't communicated anything.
Well,
Well, and I
then
think-
why
They're
did
giving
McCollum
us the
say what he said?
They're giving us the 90 days. That was
They're-
the agreement back in
right.
February.
Well, and I think it's
So-
important to kind of.
He came right up to the podium and he said that they had received, they didn't have another offer.
Well,
that has nothing to do
position
with
on
it.
that is, if they have another officer interested, take it, it
Well,
doesn't
my
matter.
point was is that I thought we
That's-
should,
yeah.
I thought we should do a workshop where we can discuss and go through the lines and do all that type of stuff and not, and that's why we did it at a special meeting instead of our regular meeting, because there is so
So
much to
that-
discuss and go over. You guys have done the research. and
Can
it'd
we
be good
do
to
that
discuss.
after we hear from the CDBG
Yes,
person?
so,
Yes.
so during the course of the subcommittee, prior to that, we hadn't really considered having the senior center move to the school with us.
I had asked
And-
about it, I can't.
And, okay, but not seriously, so now we, in the
If I was serious, I
Well,
asked.
I mean, we hadn't gotten information,
I was serious.
any information on what that would entail or any cost estimates. So, because we were under the impression that if we moved into the senior center, we would have to repay back all of the CDBG money that was granted to us. So Carla was kind enough to come tonight to explain how that process would work. So Carla, if you could.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to go up here and start.
That would be.
Thank you. My name is Carla Spradlin. I'm the Grant Compliance and Program Coordinator for Oakland County's Community and Home Improvement Division. I've been involved as the community monitor of Brandon Township and the Village of Yorkville for many, many years, and have been working with Candy as of late on the rehab of the Edna Burton Center. For those of you who have not popped into the center lately, you may have noticed that there have been lots of changes at the center over the course of the last couple of years, including the current kitchen renovation that we're involved in right now. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of your space here. I wanted to share with the audience, I know that there's many of these, thank you, many of these already out in the public viewing areas, but if you want to take one of those, it's just got a little bit of information about our division in Oakland County and the work that we do, not just in Ortonville and Brandon. But I'm really here tonight to talk about the impact of the use of CDBG at the Edna Burton and your local decision about how you want to handle what might happen or what could happen if you chose to no longer use 345 Ball Street as your senior center. And I have to say, while there are local decisions to be made, there are actual federal regulations that guide the answers to some of your questions. So I'm happy to take questions, but I'm also happy to just kind of lay out a scenario. So I think I'll start with a scenario and then we'll see where we go from there. The Edna Burton Senior Center was acquired with federal community development block grant dollars. Those funds come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they are administered by our offices in the county, the Community and Home Improvement Division. Because the property was acquired with CDBG funds, that's a little bit different than if you just put money into a kitchen renovation, right? So we acquired a building for a CDBG eligible purpose, which is the senior center itself. Now there is the possibility that a decision will be made that that facility no longer functions as a senior center because you would choose to move those activities and that function to another location. No matter where it is, not that I don't care, but for the sake of this conversation, I don't care where you go. I just care that you're going to go if you go. So if you decide to go and move that out of 345 Ball Street because you acquired it with federal dollars, that would trigger what's called a reversion of assets. You would be going from a CDBG eligible to a CDBG non-eligible use, right? Because if you stopped operating the senior center and you didn't come to me and say, oh, but we've got this other CDBG eligible project we could put in there, right? Instead, we'd like to sell the property to the open market. We'd like to turn it into a parking garage. We'd like to build condos there. I mean, whatever it is that's not a senior center would have to go through a CDBG eligible test. And I can't think of an activity that would be eligible in that location if it wasn't a senior center. So you've made the decision. The senior center is moving. The property has been vacated. Because there is a reversion of assets going from an eligible to an ineligible use, there would have to be a determination of the current fair market value of the property, and that amount would have to be paid back to Oakland County. Don't get nervous. That doesn't mean that you don't have access to those dollars. It means that the federal dollars have to come back to the county because we are very conscious of our fiduciary responsibility to federal dollars. We would take the money back, but then those dollars would be reallocated to Brandon Township in the following program year. We operate everything we do on a program year. It's not a federal fiscal year, it's not a calendar year, it's called a program year. It starts July 1 through June 30. So if this happened, and if the sale occurred before the end of this program year, which is currently, we're still in the 17 program year. So that's iffy a lot, right? And that check was cut back, then those funds would be reallocated to you all with your application for 18 or for 19, depending on what the timing would be.
100%?
Yeah, 100%. We don't take any
So
kind
it's just
of
the
cut
funny
or
money, it's
fee.
just,
Well, what can that
Transfer
money
money
be?
back and forth, is what
It's
you're saying.
reallocated to us to be used for
It has to be
what?
used for CDBG eligible use. So you would have to find another activity that you would want to use those dollars for. And I am the person at the county who helps guide communities on eligibility determination. So you guys would probably come up with some ideas and shoot them across my desk.
Do we have any activities here that could be that?
Well, I mean,
What about a new senior center? We're moving.
well,
But that's.
so the senior center, okay, so do we want to talk about the possibility of using those funds to purchase a piece of property to build a senior center that has nothing to do with the property in question?
No,
Or do we want to talk
renovation.
specifically about the property in question?
No, so if, I think he's saying, so if we did all this, we moved activities, we triggered the reversal, we need to do the fair market value.
Yeah.
The money we pay back to the county,
Yeah.
the county then holds it for us. Can we use that to help with renovating this new building?
Move it.
If we
So
purchase
here's
this new
the
building
thing.
and the senior center's inside of that new
Here's the
building?
thing, I don't make eligibility determinations on just a what if. I would need to see the building, I would need to see your plans, I would need to know the functions, the hours, the space assignment. If there are other uses within the building that makes it more complicated. I will tell you that we have examples in the county of municipal buildings that have a senior center component within them. Highland Township is an example, okay? So in Highland Township, there is a portion of the building that is used for senior center purposes. They run a Meals on Wheels program, they have transportation, they do all the typical senior center stuff. And then they also have their township offices and their, everything else. So it's not a Chinese wall, but it's basically, this stays here and that stays there, right? So there have been projects that we have been able to establish what we would call a pro rata. So the share of the building that could be funded with CDBG because that share is addressing the needs of that portion of the building. We have been able to do that. I'm going to use Highland Township as another example of something that you might think about doing, which is that Highland Township, because their senior center is in their municipal building, they don't really have enough space. They have a lot of programming, they've got a pretty active program, and so they have a building that's about a block away. And it's an old historic church that has multiple uses in it, but a portion of that building is used for what they call their senior center annex, okay? So some of the programs are happening, again, in the municipality, some of them are happening a block down the road. And so they don't operate two senior centers, they just operate one senior center, but in two different locations. So if you want to go, and I'm making this up, but if you want to go to Tai Chi, you go here. If you want to go to get a meal, you go there. That kind of thing. I really can't tell you exactly how their programming works, but that's the idea, right? So if 345 Ball was something that you wanted to maintain as a senior center, and then you also wanted to say have a
Bingo program and
a senior-only bingo, senior-only multi-purpose room at the new site, wherever that site may be, then we could have a conversation about that. There would not be the opportunity in your community unless it was in one particular location, which I know would not be a place that would work because it's where your mobile home community is. But there's only one location where you could actually have or fund what typically would be called a community center. So a more larger scale, community-wide, not delineated by age kind of facility.
I have a question for you. Basically, this is all in the ether, I guess, of what you're talking. What I'm hearing from you, though, is if the fair market value of that current senior center is determined, let's just call it $200,000.
Let's call it 1.2 million. I mean, we can call it whatever number you want.
Well, let's
Yeah.
just call it 200,000. That money has to be paid back, but it's going to come back to the township.
Yeah.
It's just a wash. But suddenly that $200,000 then is reserved / earmarked that it has to go to some future senior center activity.
No, it has to go to, and it's not really future. It would have to go immediately to a CDBG eligible use. You can't park that money for any period of time.
And which may or may not be approved as part of the reconstruction of the school.
Possibly.
Okay.
But if we
Well,
did
that's
it,
another
but
question.
instead of doing a rec center, because you just mentioned a community center, so like what we were picturing at the new place was a rec center and a senior center. If we didn't call it either or because rec sounds younger and senior sounds the age, if you said, if you just made it a community and good for anybody, then that's qualified for C.
No, I did not say that.
Oh, because you
Only if
mentioned the
it's in the
community.
mobile
No.
home park.
Oh,
What I
only
was
the mobile
saying-
home park could be a
That is correct.
community
Because of the location being what is considered to be an area-wide benefit area, which means that there is a concentration of low-income people in that area, and therefore a community center would qualify. The only reason 345 Ball qualifies as a public facility at all is because the federal government believes that there is actually a list of different types of groups that they consider to be low income. Because everything we're talking about, all the dollars we have, are to be used to benefit low-income people.
Have we
So,
looked at the
let me
area
finish,
where it's
please. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a list of types of groups of people that the federal government believes are automatically low-income, and seniors fall into that group. So that's why a senior center is something that is easy to qualify, and the location is not an
in a
issue.
community center.
Yes.
So is there, did you look at that, did you look at that area? Do you know where we're looking at purchasing? Is that area?
Yes, no,
considered-
it's not. That's why I said the only area, because I know this community and I know the
Right.
location of the area-wide benefit areas, the only area in your community that would be eligible on an area-wide basis is the area where your mobile home parks are located, which is in the southeast corner of your community. I believe you were next.
Carla, we've done projects recently, and in
Yes,
fact,
yes.
we're in the middle of doing a
Yes.
kitchen remodeling.
Yes.
Does that play at all
Yes, it
into
does.
the amount of money we have to
Oh,
pay back?
no, but it does play into things from the standpoint that when I went to my manager and I said, you know, they're thinking or talking about this, she said, well, you need to make sure that they understand that that kitchen project needs to be completed. So we've invested dollars that are your dollars, but we've approved them, we've gone through the process, we do not want you to stop. There is a spending performance requirement for all of this money, so we cannot afford to stop a project in the middle, cancel contracts and kind of just let and sit on money. So I've already mentioned this to Candy, the kitchen project needs to go to its fruition, which would mean that if you decided to put the property on the market, whoever was looking at it, if they decided to keep it, they have a very nice kitchen available.
Can I
You're
go
next. Yes, you can.
So, my question then, if we chose to maintain that as a senior annex, would we still have to go through all the money juggling that you're talking about?
So, the issue there is an issue of timing. First of all, you have to convince us that there would be a need for 2 different senior centers in your community.
Okay.
Secondly, the reversion of assets would occur when the change of use occurred. So, to answer your question more directly, if you had an annex, first of all, if it was approved, which I don't know, that
Right.
clearly there seems to be some indication that that may not be necessary. But if there was, and we had some documentation that showed us that there is a need, whether it be things like, you know, numbers of seniors, level of programming, pressure from other communities, information from the Area Agency on Aging about things like Meals on Wheels programs and whether the geography is really working for what you have. All of those things could be things we would look at. But the reversion of assets is going to get triggered when you decide to move the programming out of that building. Whether it's an annex for a week or if it's an annex for 10 years, and at some point, because acquisition dollars went into that, there would be a reversion of assets if you decided to change the use.
But if you're making it an annex, are you really changing the use?
When you change it from the annex, you would. So you could, like I said, potentially operate an annex there if it was deemed necessary,
Right.
okay, which is a challenge. But if it was just deemed as necessary and an annex functioned there, then when y'all decided that you didn't need it anymore and you wanted to say, just stay at one particular location, stop senior programming altogether, whatever, that is when the change of use issue would be triggered and the reversion of
So
assets would come into
conceivably,
play.
30 years from now, we decided we didn't want to maintain it anymore.
I mean,
Okay, all right, I got you.
I won't be here in 30 years. I don't know how many people in this room will be here in 30 years. But let's say, sure,
Okay.
conceivably, maybe. Okay?
Right.
That's about as close
Okay.
as you're going to get from me on
All
that.
right, all right.
Yeah, that's like, how long are you
I
in
think-
this for?
I think-
Sorry, I can't see behind me,
That's
so
okay.
I'm trying to face this way so I can
Do you
see.
know of any other buildings that the township may have used CDBG funds to purchase?
Candy and I have, and because this has come up, we've actually had lots of conversation lately about the investment of CDBG dollars in various buildings throughout the township. And I'm also aware of some of the money that's gone into the facilities in the village, including, say, for example, the old mill. In terms of acquisition, I'm not absolutely sure, but I do know there's been lots of just investment in different things over time, and we're actually taking this opportunity to go back and look at those, look at depreciation schedules. We collect information at our office in terms of what we think the inventory of the investment is. We require our communities to do the same. So we've actually talked about, hey, we need to get together and sort of check each other's list and make sure that we've got the most up-to-date information. So we're already kind of working on that, but this issue is kind of at the forefront. I think you were next, sir? Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Is Carla?
Yeah, it is.
Carla, the 345 property
Uh-huh.
is pretty specific to a community center slash with the kitchen slash with the meeting room.
From a functional
slash-
standpoint, sure.
Okay, now, my question to you is this. There's obviously been, I don't know how much, that the federal government has given you guys and you guys have given us
Sure.
for that property.
Yes.
Now, when we go to sell it, let's say if that should happen, we decide we want to move all, and we want to do that reversion of assets thing that you were talking about, and the monies that the federal government has spent, you guys have spent, our money, and it comes in and we can't get like even half of what the federal government has spent on that building to make it a senior center, what happens?
It doesn't matter.
So we only get half.
What matters is the fact that if it was $1 or $100 million, funds were used to acquire the property. That's
Right.
the trigger, right?
I know.
So we have put a lot more money in that building than just the acquisition costs.
I know.
So,
That's what I'm getting at.
okay, so the fair market value of that property will be determined potentially at some point, and it could end up being that that fair market value is $1 more than the acquisition cost, or $1 more than what the rehab that's gone into it. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. There is no comparison between the acquisition or the rehab and the fair market value. Whatever the fair market value is the amount that will need to be paid back. There will have to be a check literally cut from the township to the county, and then those funds will be deposited, and they will come back to you the next year in 100% capacity.
So if it's
called
less
program
than what's
income.
already been invested in that building, that's okay.
Yeah, because it's the fair market value, and whatever the fair market value is what the fair market value is. And we, the county, don't determine it, the market determines it.
I know that.
Yes. No, I know you do, and for the benefit of everyone, I'm
No,
explaining it.
what I'm getting, you know where I'm going with that question.
I hope I do. I think you're sort of saying, well, you know, it looks like maybe we might actually make out on this deal.
No,
because
I'm
we
looking
might actually-
at it absolutely
Yeah,
the
so
opposite
reverse?
way.
Oh, okay, okay.
We are not going to make more money on that. Or how can we?
I don't really know what the market is in downtown Ortonville right now for a piece of property of that size. I can't tell you what it would be. I can tell you that when we sold a senior center in Rochester, the property I think went for about $2.5 million, so
So if the fair market value is, say, 200,000, but we can only get 100 for it,
So you have to sell it for the appraised value.
we have to sell it.
You are required to sell it for the appraised value.
Now, is there anything that stops us? Is there any, I know, like, so you had said that this area was okay to have the senior center based on the income of this area. And I
Well,
know-
actually, what I said was that the senior center is eligible because
Eligible.
it's designated for the use of seniors.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and then you were talking about the community center. Now, where we're looking at moving to.
Yes.
If we did a multi-purpose or we segregated and said this is just senior center,
Mhm.
could it qualify if we went through all this stuff, or no, you know that area doesn't, because you know that area doesn't qualify for community?
It would not,
that area
it would not qualify
for
as a
senior?
community center.
But it could qualify for senior?
You know, I just hesitate giving a public yes to those kinds of questions, because again, I have not seen the building. I don't know what the layout is. There are environmental requirements for all of our programs. There's historic preservation rules. I don't know how old the building is. So, I mean, do we look at, shared spaces? Yes, we fund shared spaces, but I've never seen this, so I'm not gonna say yes.
Does that mean in the future then, 10 years, let's say we did move, it's all done, but we could never apply for CDBG funds for that building in the future then, based on what you're saying?
That building, okay, so let's just play a game and let's just assume that the senior center doesn't move to that building. And you have other functions within that building, right, that are municipal related. I've heard things about sheriff maybe, or fire, or other functions of municipal government being moved into that building. That automatically makes the property ineligible for the use of CDBG funds, except for in one instance, okay? If that property requires a retrofit of an existing ADA non-compliant element, okay?
Okay, gotcha.
It's a little complicated, right? So let's just say, for an example, again, I have never driven down the road that this property is even on. But let's just say that it has a door, and that door is a municipal, will eventually be an entryway to, say, Candy's, the main office of the building, where you all would have your offices. And you have counters where people want to do business and things of that nature. And you need the funds to be able to make that building accessible to your residents. So there is the possibility again, and this would be the only time that CDBG funds could be used on that kind of building. So it's called a removal of architectural barriers project. It's only for, it's only for retrofitting existing. So let's say, for an example, you guys decided that you weren't going to deal with this, but you were going to use an open piece of property and build a building, right? We couldn't help you with ADA works on a municipal building, right? Because your building, as it's new, would have to meet ADA requirements. So it's all about retrofitting existing non-compliant elements to make them accessible to the public.
And if we don't use,
You're cool, there's nobody else. If
if we don't use those funds in the,
Sorry.
if we don't.
It's okay, Nancy, go ahead, I'll get her next. It's
If
not a
we
big
don't
deal.
use those funds in the following year, we lose them, you're saying, because
So-
we can't bank them.
So we don't bank money.
Right.
We have a spending performance requirement that says you can only have a year and a half worth of money on your books at one time. We would have to have serious conversations as soon as you've made your decision about ideas for the use of those dollars. So we would definitely need to come up with something rather quickly.
Thank you. I'm just going back to the price of the property if we were to sell it. If the property was had an appraised value, I would assume that is how you would figure out what
Yep.
the value is by appraisal.
Yep.
If we could sell it for that cost and sold it for less, would we still have to pay back the appraised value?
I believe the answer to that is yes. I don't believe we've ever had that happen, but I do believe that that's the case. Yes, the regulation specifically talks to the case of value, so. Hi, can the public ask questions? No? Oh, sorry, okay, that's all right. Can I answer questions of the public as I'm walking out the door?
Yes.
Okay, great. Anybody else? I will certainly be walking out the door soon. Anybody wants to touch me on my way up?
I really appreciate you.
Oh,
coming
no
tonight.
problem. I'll leave some cards. You guys have got my annual reports.
Okay.
Andy's got me on speed dial, so.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
627-2851. I got you.
531?
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very enlightening.
Yeah. I think the next question is, do we want to continue to talk about including the senior center in this discussion?
Well,
It seems to me like no.
she didn't say it was absolutely out of the question, because she said there have been shared structures, shared usage structures they've allowed, and she used Highland as an example.
I don't think we could afford to jump into something only to hope 2
And then
years from
just
now
pay
it's
for
going to
AV
qualify.
accessible doors
Yeah.
or bathrooms.
That would be a very, I would not recommend that.
And like, you know, Kathy asked the last question, that was really what I was getting at. If we sell that property for less than what we've gotten involved in that property through federal funds, then we have to pay that money back, even though we don't get that
It
money.
was slightly different than that, Chris. What she said is if, you know, a realtor comes out or whoever and appraises the property and says it's worth 200, but we can only get 175.
Right.
And we'd owe the 25. We
Right.
don't owe all the past monies that's gone into it. We only have to make sure that we can
Oh, okay.
Paying
earn the fair market value as of today.
The issue is do we know what that fair market value is about? Did we ever get that answer from anybody?
We do.
Is that included in the package or not?
That's what I was
I
trying to
don't
find
remember
out.
seeing
I don't remember
that.
seeing it. I'm just curious what are we looking at trying to get?
So they just tell
It
us
was
what
from
it
our
is.
workshop, Kathy, wasn't it?
Probably.
From the-
That might be
from
one
the
thing I
assessor?
don't want to say,
From the assessor.
because it's from the assessor.
That was
It's
only in
gotta
our-
be going to the,
I can go to the assessor's office as a private citizen and get the fair
I
market
have a copy
value.
right here, I can make it a moment.
So-
That's what you're talking, right? From,
Yeah.
yep, up on here.
you
Okay.
figured out 2 different things.
Um,
Well, I'm sorry.
My thought with that is, it sounded like once you paid it back, it was very difficult to put it into a new project.
That's what I'm trying to
In
figure
order
out.
to get all of your money back.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying, that's what I said, if the fair
That's
market
what it
value
sounds
is
like.
200,000, we have to give them 200,000, and then we have a year and a half to try to spend
Try to spend that.
200,000, and if it can't go into, yeah, that's allowable. Right, that's what I was gonna say, and if it can't go into the building because they're not gonna allow it because it's a multi-purpose type of a thing, then we have to look through this township and say, what can we do for 200,000? That's pretty.
And it's gotten more and more limited as years have gone.
Correct, and then, if we do that, then you're, and if we buy another building with 200,000, then you're getting yourself into the same situation. So, yeah,
That's why I'm saying that maybe we should take the senior center out of this discussion, because this sounds like it almost automatically qualifies it.
Well, and that's why I thought when I first asked the senior center question a long time ago, it was, no, we have to pay all the funds back, was the answer that I did get from Candy. And then she was right, that's what you do, basically, even though we get it back, you're still paying it back, because what if you don't spend it?
But it's not the fund, it's the fair market value of the
Right,
property.
right, and she had told me all that.
Yeah.
It's still, yeah,
That seems,
just seems like though,
I think it is around $100,000, which bring that in.
I was just guessing.
But that seems like that's a lot of renovations in a new building, and if it's strictly for the seniors, I don't know. Here's for this.
could you spare the?
Here, I got mine. You got it?
Yeah, this is.
So the senior center, so this is what the assessor gave us as far as the value on the properties, and he gave us an income analysis and a sales comp. So senior center, 180. Well, one is 179 and one is 180, so right around 180 is what he values it at. And I don't know if this would be acceptable to CDBG or if we'd have to do a full appraisal on the
I'm
property.
sure you'd have to do a firm appraisal.
But it gets us close, we know it was.
Yeah, it gives us to
all.
know, it's, yeah.
I think the major thing that we need to look at tonight is that spreadsheet costs.
cost analysis?
Is that the
Yes,
spreadsheet
cost
Scott sent?
analysis, yeah. And the pros and cons, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to read that, and so I think maybe we should center our discussion around the information that's on both those sheets and see if anybody had any questions or concerns or wanted clarification on anything.
No, it's just that I think Amy and whoever helped you put together, thank you for putting together these numbers. I know it's not an easy task, but I have a feeling that some of these numbers, I'm going to use call the word soft. For instance, even though we upped the electricity, the total, let's call it the total power usage between heat and electricity. I have a feeling that number's low. Once you start cooling that big building, I think it's going to be very expensive. And somebody pointed it out during the citizens' comments, but we're talking about, regardless of the cost, if they gave us the building and they said they do the renovations for free, we're still talking about adding nearly $58,000 a year cost, just cost. It's a big number when you add, 10 years of $500,000 we're talking about.
I have a question on the revised. Why was heat and gas moved and electricity put up? Is it because it's the way?
They didn't separate them out.
I had them separated. We didn't have a separated amount from the school. They gave us one amount, which was $39,900 and some dollars.
Okay,
So I actually put like 15 for the heat and the balance for
Put it all
the
washes out.
electricity.
But it all washes. Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure there wasn't something missing here because now there's nothing here and it's put off here. It's just combined.
I just combined them.
Okay.
How it
That's
was
fine.
on the first time.
So we just upped from 22 to, well, it wasn't the first
And
time.
actually-
The first time it was, sorry, it was 15 and 22, so it was 37. So we just went up
Which
from
is what the
37 to
school said.
50. Right, so we just went up from 37 to 52 basically.
And just so
Try and
everybody's clear,
cover-
that extra 15 that I threw in for the electricity for the air conditioning, I made it up. I tried to get some stats online of what's the difference between summer and winter as far as electricity bills. I found a couple of percentages, and then I actually even looked at my own bills, and I made that number up. There's no official passes that $15,000. I suspect it's gonna be, I tried to lowball it. I suspect it's gonna be higher.
What, 15,000?
I made up a number of $15,000. Once we install electricity out there, once we install the air out there, we're going to have to pay for the electricity to run that air during the summer.
Yeah, I know, but
And
where's
so
it at on it?
It's included in the 51. It's included
Right
in
here?
that number there, yeah.
Okay.
So can we just kind of,
Okay, so that's
we go through
electricity,
and ask
that's
questions
AC.
on this, what we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
So this rent, the first thing is, right now we're paying, I just want to make sure I'm reading correctly, right now we're paying rent to the OTV and for school facilities for the rec department, I'm assuming. And then we're saying we're just going to have a little bit still for, because of being a multi-use and times conflicting and or not enough for all the programs we run, is that correct?
Right, yep. So Fred will still have to rent some kind of.
Some, but not as much, which I figured you'd still have to rent some just because
Yes.
so many programs.
And that's just an estimate.
Of course, yes.
Right.
Well, the actual shouldn't be estimates, the actual should be close, right?
Oh, the actuals are,
Right, the current is,
it was for all of 2017, all these numbers in the first column are
So the
based on the
current-
whole year
so-
for 17.
Currently,
Okay.
we spend about $5,000. The estimate came in and how much of that would be still be spent in renting space from the schools.
Right.
and then it should have been 5 here.
I had it 5 there and it got changed.
That should be 5
Well,
there.
Kathy and I talked about it and said, because we're still gonna have the 15.
But the current should still be 5.
It should. That's
Because
okay.
that's what
It's-
you're spending.
it's
It's
a
only
small-
1,500, yeah.
Right.
But we'll change it to
Well, we-
$5,000.
So the current should still be 5, because you're comparing apples to apples, what you spent.
We'll still be backing out the 15 from that, so then that is 3,500.
Right, but different, yeah.
Okay, I got several questions, okay? Let's start with, the asking price of the structure is extreme and prohibited as per the township assessor.
What page is
Put it
that?
on the-
It's on the pros and cons.
Okay.
Well, we were going to go through this first, Chris, did you have any other?
Oh, you're talking about stay with the revised?
Yeah, 'cause
Um,
I think they want to go through.
Yeah, I do have some questions about that, and basically, unfortunately, Fred's not here, maybe Scott, you're on the Recreation Committee, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, what is going to be the use of that new gym that they built? What's that gonna be used for?
That's a wish list, and I can't give you an exact, it's a nice to have kind of thing. It's not, because currently we don't have a gym, so I can't tell you. I know that, you know, for instance, maybe they could have the parent-kid dances there, whether, you know, those kind of things. It's a nice to have. It's not replacing anything that we're currently using other than times we have to rent the school gym for things. It's a little bit smaller, so there's certain things that they're using on the school gym, but I think they'll still have to use the school gym.
Okay, so it's not gonna become the
Back-
catch-all for any, because my, you know, let me just, you know, and the reason why I asked that question.
Another thing Fred said is he would be running more programs.
Right.
That he's currently running, because he would have, like, he would be able to do things in the summer, and because he's.
Like, give me an example.
Basketball.
In the summer?
Yeah, he would run the, what is it, the summer program that he
The
used to
playground
run,
program.
Playground program.
Bring that back.
He would be
Oh,
able
that
to
would be-
run
That
that.
used to be huge.
We had
Yeah,
to
we used ice
stop
shovels.
that because of the cost of running the school.
Soccer used to be.
So he would be able to do a little more than he's already
Okay.
doing.
And I've spoken to Fred about that, and my only thing to have everyone be cautious about is that a private company has purchased BFIS.
Yes.
They're going to be starting all their own sports programs as well. So although Fred has good intentions of saying he's gonna start yet all these other ones, there's a lot of competition going on now for limited number of kids.
And the school district has put out a
I saw that. It
beautiful,
was in the paper this
wonderful,
week.
I have to say,
Yeah.
summer program
That they're
that they
gonna be
did.
doing that as well,
Yes, I
so-
just gave it to both of my kids and said, Mark, what you want to do.
That's why I said the gym and things, it's a nice to have, but I can't guarantee that what Fred wants to do is actually what's going to get done. It's nice that he wants to do it, but
Yeah.
it's, I
No,
don't.
I appreciate the qualification, because my concern with that gym is it is without facilities that are needed and necessary for adults to use, and that includes locker rooms, places to change, showers, and so on and so forth. Bleachers for people to sit in if they want to come and watch people play, and so on and so forth. It's missing like a lot of things.
It's an elementary school gym.
Yeah, I know, but that's important. So it can be used by elementary school kids, and that's about it.
But our adult programs, the adults don't use showers. We don't use
Well,
bleachers.
I don't know.
Kathy plays adult volleyball,
Yeah,
so
nobody takes a
there's
shower.
no showers or locker rooms. You show up and light.
But it's not like you're
But we
at
do-
a-
I'm biting
but we
my tongue
do
on
need a
that
bathroom.
Yeah, me too.
need a bathroom.
But I'm gonna have to come watch it.
You know.
Um,
Because,
Just
you
stay
know,
upwind.
and the reason why I ask that question is if men want to play in that gym, and men want to play basketball in the gym, and men want to play volleyball in that gym, we do sweat. And we sweat a lot. And if we're playing in the middle of winter time, I'm not going to want to go out when it's 20 degrees outside and a wind chill of -10 in wet clothing. And the bottom line is, that's what I'm going to have to do.
Right, and that's what's happening already.
Because there's no locker room.
It's happened
That's what's
forever.
happening
I know,
already.
and I feel sorry for the township if someone would come down with some disease.
I did not see any comparison in the cost analysis of like lowering the one-year cost by what we would sell our buildings for. I would have thought that should have been in here.
Lowering.
The 1 year, the total first-year cost will be less.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at the second page.
Second page?
Did anywhere get put in what we could sell this building for, or the substation? I know the OTV we run, so that cost was taken out, but no, nothing was.
You can go to the fair market value.
Yeah, it was on your, it's on the
Right,
appraisal.
so the first year cost, you could say would be lowered by what you could sell those two
Right,
buildings
exactly.
for. I
Or
just went-
roughly 400,000.
Is that what, that's what I just
Between
wanted
the two
to
of them.
see.
Yeah.
So you got the township office. Okay, minus 288, and minus 146. So that would lower the one-year cost, is what I just wanted to
Right.
discuss with everybody. Just make sure we're all on the same page of realizing that.
So we need to subtract $400,000 from this bottom line.
Yeah.
But would we want to subtract that right away, because isn't that assuming that we'll be selling the buildings within the first year?
Well,
Correct.
but if not, you'd be doing it within the second year, hopefully, so I'm just saying,
Hopefully.
you would
Right.
have that cost
Right.
to offset.
Well, that's,
I mean, why don't we
that's the
have
market.
any insurance down for the senior center?
Because we pay that. If there was a zero across one of the departments, we pay.
But is it
didn't have
included-
anything, so
Oh,
I didn't
I'm
know.
sorry,
But is, okay, so where are you back at, the senior center insurance?
professional. It's on the second
Sorry,
page.
we're trying to find it. So the professional on the second page, so is that included though, even though they have zero, is that included in our 27,000 then?
Yeah.
still? Okay, so it's not like it got touched, it's just up there. Okay. Now, I know one of the residents had mentioned about the other land that we purchased, that the fire station, and asked what our plans were with that. I didn't know if we wanted to bring that up or talk about what it would cost to build a new building if we didn't purchase.
And I think we touched on.
We did, but I
that a
think we
little
should have.
bit.
So do we know what it would be to build, and would we even be part of that, or is that more for fire?
The discussions I've had, especially with the fire chief, it sounded like if the fire chief were to build a station, he would want it close to M15. Municipal offices could be back a little further, no? Go ahead.
We could. The original conceptual idea to the whole thing was that we would actually build a government complex, if you will, that would be more towards the center of the property, that would be able to house the sheriff's department, the fire department, and the township offices.
I thought you said the fire department wanted close to M15 so they could get out there quicker,
No.
and then the other side on M15 would be for sale.
No, we would look at the entire frontage on M15 to be for sale for business use, because that will bring in our largest bang for our buck, if you will. And what we do is, I mean, so this is conceptual in the fact that it's probably going to be done well after I'm gone. But
I realize that we're not moving.
you know, we put a drive-in that would service that. That's why there's culverts already there. So the substructure is partially there. We don't have the rest of the infrastructure that goes with that. The appropriate road underlayment, buildup of that, if you will. So then, once that was done, once we got over the first set of culverts, there's a very large area that we can make into a very nice community complex. Again, it would be as I said, the fire station. You could put the substation out there, and township offices. You could have a meeting room, a very large meeting room. I've seen very similar to what Auburn Hills has.
And that was the goal way back in the early 2000s when they purchased that property. That was the original.
I wouldn't say that was the goal, but I think that was the conceptual idea, is that at some point in time, if the township offices wanted to move down there, that was the option. The reason we bought the property, if I can just real quick, the reason we bought the property is because right now, if we were to need a ladder truck, we're real close. We're not there yet. But should we need a ladder truck, I don't have a building that can store it.
Not even Oakwood.
Oakwood, I can, but then I got to take something out. So the question is, what do I get rid of? So there's those. Definitely, that was the issue back then. And Scott, to further take that, at the time when we bought that property, there was a development that was in the process that was going to be multi-story, multi-tenant, multi-building complex on M15 just north of Oak Hill. That never came to fruition because of the downturn of the economy.
Thus the need for the ladder truck.
Thus the need for the ladder truck, exactly. So like I said, I don't see that something that I will probably have to deal with, but who knows, that I might be here till I'm 80, so we'll see.
And we've had that conversation, I just wanted about
Yep.
when that would actually happen. I remember we talked about a price to a building.
Well,
and a
in
building.
this
What did we
conversation,
do?
with
It was
the
$188 per square foot to build the building. So it came out to $720,000.
Build a building?
Be a lot more than
I
that.
said that.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, in my conversation with the building director, we were thinking more along the lines of $3 million to build the township offices, and maybe we could put like the substation on the lower level.
Would that
But-
would that also cover the road, driveway?
And I don't
the-
think that would even cover the road.
Septic.
Would that be a
Just
rec
the building.
center, would that be like move everything there, OTV, move sheriff, move all of this, and have a rec center?
No, it wouldn't,
What
it
what
wouldn't be a
comparable
rec
size
center.
would that be?
So no rec.
Or would it be
engineer,
comparable
rec center.
size to this or comparable size to Bel Air for the 3 million?
Oh, probably half the size of the land.
Okay. Which is,
It's 40,000 square foot.
Chief, where's that property located?
yeah, okay.
Just for us,
It's-
us
The
neophytes that don't know.
Right, the property is just south of Genesis Credit Union. So on the east side of the road. East side of the road.
Side?
Yeah. It goes back in there.
All back to that property there.
Right, and it ties into a piece that the township just bought, that other 10 acres that he
Right.
bought. So through
Now, you're
the,
talking about like access and egress, is that like already there, you're saying?
you would
to get
have,
to the
there
property.
there is some of the, as I said, there are some of the.
North of the Dollar
crossings.
General now we're talking.
Right, no, north of that, yeah, north of that.
North of the Dollar General and between that and Genesis.
Right.
Well, if you go just south of Genesis Credit Union,
Right.
that's where it's at.
That's what I'm saying.
You'll see there's 2 posts out there. And it says, for information, contact fire department.
Okay. I'll look for it next time. Thank you. I was unaware of that.
When we start talking about the cost of building a new building, what that would cost, that's a fair discussion to have, assuming that we had to move out of here. But we don't have to move out of here, so therefore discussing the difference of should we buy Bel-Ann or build new is kind of, I think, premature. It suddenly rationalizes the cost of Bel-Ann, where I'm leaning towards the fact that this building needs some work, and I think that even some of the things should be done even if we're gonna sell it, because, just making our flag look nicer and certain signs out front look better, it should be done. But I've never been convinced that this is a bad building. I like it here.
I'm not saying it's a bad building, I like it here too. There's pros and cons to being here, there's pros and cons going to Bel-Ann, and there'd be pros and cons to building a new building. I just want to know what all the options are, and an option is to stay, an option is to move to Bel-Ann, and an option is to say that someday we're going to move out and spend $3 million. So I just want to know what my dollar options are, because I look at everything. Even if that is our future of if we did stay and build, and we might stay and never build. But we did spend, a lot of money was spent on this property. And I don't want to.
Out of the fire budget, thank you.
Yeah, I was saying.
Out of the fire budget, but still.
So the
it's
fire
a-
department can just make a fire department.
Right, it doesn't mean that they
Doesn't
can't get
mean
a
it-
building someday
Right.
for the fire department.
Right. They don't have to include us with their stuff.
That's true.
We would have to beg them.
There are things here in the building we cannot fix. We cannot expand anywhere, up or out any size. We can't get any bigger. We cannot add to our parking at all. Last Thursday night, I walked out my door and there was 2 people on motorcycles that had driven around twice to find a parking spot. And, I
For
said.
the bar?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, but they're taking our spots, so our citizens cannot come and park when we get a phone call the day after a meeting and it says, hey, I couldn't come in that meeting because I couldn't park
That-
anywhere.
That's an
So-
enforcement issue. I agree with you, if that becomes a big problem, then we need to
It's a
have talk with
problem
the bar.
almost daily as far as the pub gets. I know, Scott, you say you hear all the time, but you're not. We have beer trucks every day. If it's not the beer truck, it's the towel linen trucks. It's always something, the ice truck. We're in a small space. That's all there is to it. I don't
One of the
know.
reasons I am curious about the viability of this is, this really is an opportunity that is only going to come around once for us. A decent-sized building that would house everything we need, if we could get it, and that's my if we could get it for a reasonable price based on what the assessor recommended.
But would it be the face that the township wants to put out there?
I don't know.
Does it say welcome?
But does this building say welcome?
But this has been here forever. People
Yeah.
expect to be here.
I know, but you know, that, to me, that's like making the argument, why you do it this way? Because that's the way we've always done it. That's never a agreeable argument for me. Just, well, we've always been here, so we should just stay here. Because at some point, we have to consider growth. And like I said, if we could get this for what the assessor gave us.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
What growth? There's only going to be 7 people on this board, always, forever. I don't anticipate a whole lot of other employees being hired to manage this township the way
I'm
it
not
is
talking
right
about
now.
just employees, I'm not talking about just the board. We have a, I don't know, not sure what the official name of it is, but the subdivision out here that has common area and all the houses are like side by side. There's no,
Long Lake.
yeah, but what do they call that, the way they structured it?
Condo.
Not a
Yeah, they
few.
condo
No,
live
they're not
together.
condos, they're homes.
Yeah, they're homes, they share the property.
Well,
It's
Yeah,
still
cluster, okay.
Well, they
There's
all
no
have,
reason to
it's
say
still
that.
2.5
It's called
acres.
site condo.
It's,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
But there's no reason to say more of
But
those
it's still
can't go.
2.5
it's
acres.
still
And we
2.5
still-
acres
and we've
per
had-
parcel.
At least, and you can correct me because you probably know the numbers, at least at the east end of Sherwood, west of Baldwin, there has to be easily 8 new houses went in down that way.
Off of
8
Sherwood?
Yeah, on Sherwood.
Well, we had 50 new builds last year.
Yeah, so it's not saying we're not gonna grow.
We're
And the-
gonna grow, but back to Scott's question, do we need more employees to manage
The growth.
the population
And
that?
eventually we're going to.
I think,
You know, and I'm not sure we need it now, but, I mean, we can't just look here, we have to look long-term, and long-term, where's the opportunity for finding a building like this that might fit our needs for a reasonable price, more so than, you know, building a building for $3 million.
I guess you're right, building it would be more expensive, but I'd rather make that decision at that time, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years from now, if this building is bursting at the seams versus spending all that money now, just because it's nice to have.
Yeah, I guess I don't think that way.
Does-
And let me tell you, I'm not a gambler. I'm a horrible gambler. I don't gamble, I don't go to casinos, because I'm not a gambler. So when I look at it, I'm looking at is, what's the potential here for growth? And then using the building to fill that potential.
And the thing I've spent the most time talking about outside of here, just talking with people, my biggest concern, and I'm broken record with the people on board, but pulling the township out, pulling the substation out, pulling that out of downtown, I think is bad for the downtown. And I don't think that we should say, well, we're the township, so we shouldn't care about the village. I don't agree with that. I think it's, I asked Terry today, just on an off chance, how many people come down here just to pay their tax bills? And it's, you know, it brings 500 to 1,000 people into town every year, pay the bills. And well, it's every 6 months.
Yeah, for
That otherwise will never come downtown, you know?
They'll drive wherever their treasurer is. You can't say they'll never come to another facility.
Well, they'll drive the last
They
road.
might
They'll
feel
come.
it, but
They'll
you
come
can't
to
say
us,
none
but
of
they
those
won't
people
come.
who come in here won't come to
No,
another
you're right, I
facility.
can't.
I
But
mean,
But I can also
and
say-
you and I have had this conversation about, for me, it's all the numbers. And when we go to closed session and talk about the assessor's numbers, that's where it's gonna fall with me, as far as I'm concerned.
But there's also another big negative, pulling the sheriff's substation out of here. Having that anchor our downtown, there's just a perceived safety aspect of having those guys there, even if they're out patrolling, having that building there, you take that out of there, I think it's gonna be a big loss for the village.
Actually, that's why I moved here,
Yeah.
to be that close to the police station.
when we're looking at numbers, the biggest numbers that I have problems with are the maintenance cost numbers. That's close to $60,000 extra each year. That's the biggest hurdle I have trouble getting over with this building, and I can foresee that maybe it will be, in addition to that number, it might even be more.
And what happens when we have our next downturn? Because you know that it's not going to stay high.
Right around the corner.
And then what? And then we've got
9 years
extra
from up market.
expenses and extra debt and extra liabilities.
And then on the counter side, that gym over at that school is gorgeous, and it's
Is it gonna take an
It's
extra
gonna-
60 grand a year?
It's something hard to pass up, but at the same time, if you look at the cost of, yes, we have to rent space for $5,000 a year, and what it would cost. And I don't know if they would be open to just us looking at purchasing a gym.
I'm not
No,
sure.
that's
I'm
not-
not sure
But
I'd
I
be
don't,
interested
but I
in
don't
that.
know if the cost of the,
Yeah.
of what we spend would warrant doing that. But if we were to use the gym, that would open up more space.
And then have we gotten feedback from the seniors? We haven't heard from seniors as far as.
Yes, I've talked to a few,
Yeah, I have
and
to.
they are, and I don't want to be putting words in their mouth, but I think I can describe it as vehemently opposed
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
they
what
are.
I've heard too.
To moving?
to moving,
moving.
yes.
I can
But-
definitely believe that.
Well,
I
yeah,
can
and,
believe it.
and I get that, and I don't mean to downplay their concern about it, but I also have to ask, have they seen the proposed area where they might be moving to?
I know that there is a driving concern.
Well, and here's, one of the seniors I talked to the other day.
About
And
Oh, driving.
Well, a lot of their
I thought you meant like you're
I-
driving, not the
A motivated
literal, I'm
concern.
driving, you're talking just, I thought you meant like a
No, I'm talking,
driving, right.
So the 92-year-old who drives from West Glass up to the senior center has no problem doing that. She does it almost every day.
good for them.
Well,
No, I'm just saying, it's gonna affect everybody.
When I
Some
spoke to
people
one of the
do it.
seniors the last week, I guess it was, this is the first part of the week, I sort of got a mixed message, because on the one hand, they said, oh, people go, they walk there all the time, and you guys know it more better than I do. Oh, people walk there all the time. And then she went on to describe how they had a trip down to, what's the casino? Firestar's Casino. But the park, yeah, the Firekeepers, but I told you, I don't go to the casinos. But they said the parking lot was filled because everybody drove in to take the bus. And I thought, well, they're all walking there, why'd they have to drive there? Why couldn't they just walk there to get the bus? So I was sort of getting a mixed message there. Everybody walks there.
Were they all
but-
seniors that go on those trips? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, see, they didn't tell me that.
Of course not.
Okay, so the people I can tell you who would, I do know that there's many people who use the rec department who would love to have the new building because they see the gym aspect of it, the rental of having a banquet room that you could rent to have baby showers, wedding showers, or first birthday party or something. So that aspect, I can see some of people from the school districts that I've talked to, not the school district itself, but people when I'm at the schools, I should say, from people with kids, my kids' age. They all think it's an awesome idea to move, but I can see that there's both ends of it, and I just wanted to put that out there. I know many who would love to see a rec center for their kids to do stuff after school and on the weekends, but they also were the ones that were pushing the school district to now the school district came out with the brochure that they came out with, and you do have to be careful because that is the problem with the energy zone building in Oxford that happened is that you had the urban air competing with the energy zone gymnastics place competing with the den all for summer camps, and they all started to drop their price. I'm going to drop by $1. Well, then they complain, well, then they need to drop by $2, and then they need to, because they were dealing with, they're just Oxford, and Oxford's bigger than us, but they were realizing that they're all pulling the same kids, and they're all competing for the same kids, and so they were having issues there with that, and I can see that happening here when you get the BFI, right, even worse because we're smaller. So you got the school district having its programs, you got the BFIS new owner having its programs, and you have us having our programs, and we're a smaller community. And then you have all the kids who already have to go to daycare because their parents work all day, so then you already had lost that. So then you have 4 competitions going on to pull the kids in.
I've been unabashedly pro-public safety. And, you know, the the recreation department on my list of priorities is further down the list. I always think public safety should get up a priority to that.
Yes.
To that end, I feel horrible for these guys working in this substation in that building. I mean, it really is, it's pathetic. I mean, I can't imagine spending a career working out of that building as tiny as it is. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, though, even though I'm not actively pro recreation center, I can see a lot of cool things that could go on in that building for recreation.
Well, if senior center is important for the seniors, the rec center should be important for the kids. Give kids something to do to keep them out of trouble. If you're worried about safety, keep kids out of trouble and give them something
So we
to
got
do.
police.
Then the police don't
All
have
right,
to worry about
getting
taking
back
care
on
of the
track,
kids.
does anybody have any other questions or concerns or comments about the cost analysis?
Just the network move wasn't on there, but I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's on there.
Move?
The
Yeah.
network
Network.
I heard that we had to come out, so I was just kind of curious. They aren't going to be able to give you good costs until they actually see what the refurb is going to be, because they're going to have to do all the drops for the cabling. So,
Where's
but I would
that?
imagine the
Oh,
numbers
not
would be anywhere
right.
between $5,000 and $10,000 for that network.
So that's
You
zero
just
right
pulled that out
now.
of the air, that number?
Well, because
I'm just asking.
Yeah, it was, because I've done a couple network moves with my own company of similar size.
I have no idea.
So I just-
Kathy.
It depends on the cable.
Yeah,
It really comes down to the cable.
they said they would move our computer system for free.
Sure.
But they don't know if there would be additional layering or without looking.
What about OTV to move? Wouldn't that be more than that?
That's in here.
That's on
OTV. The network move though, but all of their equipment to move and reset up and all that stuff, don't they? Didn't he say he needed special things or something like that?
Yeah, he'll have to have the guy who he's dealing with right now make the move for them to hook everything up. And
Yeah, you got a cost for that, right? How come it's not on here?
I didn't.
Oh, it's the $3,000?
Here, and that's for the senior center
That's the
annual.
OTV.
OTV said he's moving himself.
Yeah, right. That's what you
It
just
won't
said.
be, yes. He can't entrust anything to be moved by anybody but himself.
But if there's a cost, there's still a cost involved in what he's gonna do.
Well-
It'll come out of,
But you said he'd have that guy do it, who we'd have to pay for.
Okay.
Thanks for putting those numbers together for me.
she worked very hard on this. If we're done looking at this.
Hold on just a second.
Let's clarify the bottom line dollars here. I mean, you know, the people in the audience were saying different numbers, people on the board are saying different numbers. Are the final numbers on their total first year cost, are those accurate? So we're talking not 900,000, we're talking $1.9 million.
I would say it depends, and I made that caveat on my notes on this as well, because it depends on the purchase price.
Oh,
The
okay.
purchase price here
Yeah.
that we have
Right.
is the asking price.
Right.
Well, I'm sure you
Okay.
never pay asking price on what you're gonna buy.
No.
Well, and then
But I'm just,
Yeah, right, yeah.
Are these, but with what's here, are
Oh.
these
I would
accurate
go with, I
numbers?
would, based on these numbers, I would go with 196, because some of these costs are gonna be incurred whether we move or not. We're gonna need to get a new generator.
Okay, so you're saying the 1.9 is the high end, 1.6 is the more realistic?
I'm saying 1.6, then minus if we were able to sell these two buildings, the total
Right.
final cost would be closer to 1.2.
That's what I'm going
Oh.
with, 1.2, because I'm taking,
So how did-
I'm adding the 10 back
I don't
into
know
the
where the
network.
920 came, I never heard that number before, so I don't know where that one.
Yeah, I
Always
mean,
people
but
like-
Came from the architect.
That would be the one, right.
that was
I'm
just the
adding-
renovation. Yeah.
I'm adding
I
in the
get it.
10K for the network move, and then I'm subtracting the two purchases of selling the two buildings, saying that our first year cost would be 1.2, and then I'm saying an ongoing cost of 55. Is what I'm looking at. It's a 60.
Okay, so we're talking 1.2 million. We, you know, that's
Best case scenario.
That's probably best case scenario, right? Okay. So it's not a million, it's not 900,000, it's 1.2 million. Okay. Thank you. Okay, ready?
Okay, so next, does anybody have any questions on the pros or cons, or is there anything you think
That's where
needs to be added?
Chris was starting to talk about those pros and cons issues.
I still believe, and we can discuss this in closed session, but the question is this, okay? The people from the school district came here, and the question was directly asked to them, do you guys have any outstanding offers? And the reply was, yes. Affirmative, yes. And I asked the question, okay, then why aren't you seeking that? Me and you looked at each other, agreed, me and you looked at each other, agreed, and so on and so forth, and we have no information on that right now. And I think that we need to get information on that.
But I'm not sure we'd be privy to that anyway. I mean,
No,
are they
we were
gonna tell
buying
us?
a home and somebody else was buying it too. They're not.
Well, no, what I'm getting at is if it's a private entity, which I'm thinking it must be, we're talking about tax revenue.
Could be a church.
I was guessing it was the church that didn't get the FIS, that's why I
Yes,
was.
there was a
assumed it
church who was looking at
Right.
the FIS.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, but I don't think guessing is a good thing to do
Oh, but
right
a
now.
church doesn't give you tax dollars.
I know, but what I'm saying is I don't think guessing that they're going to be interested in Bell Ann is a good move.
Well, the school told us that they are going to not negotiate with anyone else until they hear back from us. So,
That's kind of silly.
well, but that's what they told us. So that's why we have the time frame that we're working in,
Okay.
to
but I'm-
let them know if we're interested in purchasing
I'm
the
just,
building or not.
I'm just going by what the school district told us. And if it's, if they got offers, that plays into my decision-making big time. I mean, it's not like we're gonna be doing them a great favor if they've already got other offers. I don't quite get it, I mean, especially an offer from a private entity. So I have a big problem with not knowing that kind of information. The other one is, I agree with Scott, and I agree with Terry, and I agree with most of the people when we talk about these moves. I think it's going to really be tough on downtown Orlandville. I really believe that, and I have a big problem with that. That is a huge con as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so what happens to downtown business district? Three more buildings going to be moving out, and so that's what I'm at.
If I could address that, I guess my first thought on that would be, okay, if we stay in downtown Ortonville as the township, but we need to move, where do we go to? Where else is there to go in
You had to
downtown?
build a building
We'd
on
have
our
to-
property.
Right, we'd have to tear this down, build something else. I don't
No,
know.
we build on our property that we own on it.
But that's not in the
That's
village.
not in the
That's not in the village.
We'd have to-
So to say, well, it's a con just because we'd be leaving the village, where else could we build in the village?
Well, that's if we have to grow.
Right.
So
And
I
there
mean,
might be
it's
another building in the downtown area that
getting ahead of ourselves there.
might meet our needs at whatever time.
So do we have a plan for the money we have sitting in the bank today that is not allocated to go anywhere? And we haven't even had this year's audit number added to it yet?
Well, okay, how much money is that we have that we could use?
It's not designated
That's
for
not
anything.
designated, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's up to
2.1 million.
See, and I don't see that in my record. I really don't.
It's not here, it was given to you before.
I know. But
Are
when
you
I'm
talking
looking at
about
my
carry
cat.
forward money, or does?
So does that leave us with nothing in our carry forward? Because you don't want to do that.
Right.
No.
we gotta
We've been
have-
working to build
Yeah,
our carry
I
forward
agree.
up.
I think the auditor wanted us to have 50% of our expenditures.
Yeah, so where do
And I
we
think that's
stand?
about where we are.
9
This
years.
isn't our annual budget roughly, it's about 2,010,000, right? Or 2,100,000, right?
Oh, yeah.
Roughly,
Say
just
roughly
roughly.
2 million, so So we want to.
So we want to keep half of that just as
We're
reserve.
gonna keep them in the-
And then it sounds to me like we're gonna be getting some new numbers for OPEB. That would be the first place I want to put the money as well.
So you
Get
both
that
have, and you
funded.
have the pension dropping a little bit, but then we have raised what we've done for the pension, so it's not dropping as much, but.
Do you know where we're at percentage-wise on OPEB? Isn't it about 80% funded?
OPEB? No,
we-
it's like
We're waiting for
30.
the actuarial.
30?
OPEB is like 30 or 40.
Oh, I thought we were higher than that.
No,
I did too.
our last actuarial was like 30 or 40.
Yeah, we have to wait for.
I thought it was
That's where
come back.
the money came
Let's not be throwing numbers around because.
Well, I'm
we're
saying our
expecting-
I can throw out our last actuarial, that's public information, I can say what our last actuarial was.
And there's no talk of going for a millage to fix the OPEB, is there?
No.
No talk at all from the retirement committee?
No, no, we are waiting
No,
for the
and our
actuarial.
next actuarial should show us at a better position.
Have we figured out when that's gonna be? I know you've been looking into it, and they said
They're
they're,
working on
we are working on the actuarial.
it. Yeah,
now.
we
Well, they already
sent them
got
all
the
the
info.
information, so they're doing their calculations.
And the audit started, do you know when we
Oh,
expect
yeah.
to have the audit or the actuarial done?
By the end of next month, we should.
Next month meeting, the end of May or the end of June, so we are at the 30th.
Today's April.
I know,
The end
but
of May.
the end of May, the actuarial and the audit should
I
be
would,
done.
well, pretty close to that time. I mean,
Earlier than last year.
Give or take a little bit.
Okay, and it has, one of the questions that I had when I was waiting for us to get to the pros and cons, has anybody said how long it would take to renovate? Like if we did do this, how long do you see this process being of us renovating and moving and all that stuff? That hasn't been discussed.
2 to 3 months per the contractor who gave us the bid.
Oh, come on, I can't believe it.
Okay.
Took me that long to redo my kitchen.
That's what I
Okay. Have we had a water,
That is,
do we know how the, I'm just asking questions that the audience asked because I want to help the residents. And I want to make sure I understand now that ideas came up. So, how is the water situation there and the environmental situation there?
What do you mean by environmental?
We're
Is
not
there any
gonna invest any
contamination?
money
Gotcha.
in that until we know if we're gonna purchase or not.
Has the school district told us of any contamination issues or any?
we asked that question on a site visit, and we were told that the water quality, drinking water quality was good, and their septic was also good. Now, if you look at the topos of the property, you'll notice that you have Lake Louise Dam across the street, and the elevation of the building is not much higher than that dam is, so, and there's water,
well, yeah.
water that ends up in Kernsley Creek that's like behind the building. So,
But the building
they-
has never flooded.
There's never been any flooding issue, but I believe it is still sitting in a floodplain.
Have we
Drive a
talked to?
different insurance cost, right?
I was just gonna say, did that get
Well,
brought up for insurance costs?
Do we know if they are paying for flood insurance, the school?
I do not know.
But that doesn't matter if the school is, they might, I mean, I would think the school would if they had to, but I know for homes, they make you pay if you have to, so I don't know. We looked at that. And what about the issues that we're having here with what HSC is working on?
HRC.
Or HRC, sorry.
Oh, the remediation?
Yes.
That would
Could
still
that cause
be,
us any problems with trying to solve?
it might, but if we would still be held responsible for taking care of that. If we were to move out of this building, that remediation is still our concern. It would go with us.
On the same issue of environmental, I seem to remember, and I'm assuming it's in here someplace, the tearing out of the 9x9, Chief, you mentioned the 9x9 tiles are asbestos. Wouldn't those have to be removed from the building?
No,
If
No.
they're there, yeah.
if they're not there.
No, There aren't any, are there, that we could see?
That we could see, we thought there might be some underneath the carpeted area
Right.
where they had recarpeted.
Okay.
You won't know until you rip that up.
All right, all right.
Once you rip up the carpet, then there might be an ad.
Okay.
Then you have to do it,
Okay.
but if we don't rip up the carpet, or we,
Tile over them?
have we looked at, and then someone asked us to do a return on investment, so should we, you consider doing it, that would be interesting to do.
I'm curious about the return
I
on
don't know
investment,
how
because we're
fast we would.
we're not a money-making operation, so I'm not sure we can say we have a return on our investment.
Right, I don't see what we're saving, to me, it doesn't look like we're saving really, because we're spending money the first year, and then it's gonna cost us money every year, so I'm not sure there's a return on investment.
According to the assessor, if we were to sell the property after we put money into this property, we would not realize much of a return on what our investment was.
Okay, so that kind of answers that question. Those are the ones I had.
Lastly, when, just as the pros and cons, another thing we brought up was the standing room only here in our meetings. And I think I can say personally, since June of 2016, there's been 3 standing room only meetings. We knew all about them ahead of time, and we could have moved them under either the library or the school, but only 3. But they never won, and there was only 3 where people couldn't get a seat. So, just throwing that out there. Granted, when you standing room only like that, there's also difficulty finding parking, but
But if we
3
knew
times
that
the
that was
past
gonna
year and a
happen,
half,
we could go to the library.
almost 2 years now.
Any other questions on the pros and cons? Or concerns?
What would happen if on the pro side, it says potential for outside rental or lease to outside businesses?
That was one of the concerns, we had talked about, that was one of my concerns. We had talked about the extra rooms, renting them for either like office space for some private companies, that kind of thing. I originally thought that might be a good idea, but I think we start opening up ourselves up to some liability issues. We start renting out space to people and playing landlord, and I'm not sure that would be,
And then
we'd have to give that
we'd
some long,
taxes
hard
on that
thought.
portion of the building because it's not a municipality.
Yeah, right, so I think that would require a long, hard debate whether it's actually something we want to get into.
And also on the pro side, the majority of the departments will see an increase in office space. But when I was looking at these little pictures, how big are the electeds offices?
However big you want.
They've got to be, but
You get, if you have a designated room, it's how big you want your inner office for yourself.
then how, doesn't that relate somehow to the renovation cost?
Yeah, that will be added in, that, we didn't discuss that when we had the architect come through.
But it is somewhat prohibitive in that there's one window and then there's a heating unit
Right.
in that room,
So
so
you're
you have to
restricted
figure
there.
out
How you can
how
have
you
the elected
still
official
have
that
light.
and heat and light to the rest
Yeah,
of the.
There was more than one window, Kathy, in those rooms. There was. You thought there was a door to go outside.
I know, but there's
And
no door.
No,
But I only
there's-
saw one window when I went out there and measured, of the offices on the back. Now, the
Right.
front might have more windows.
I think there's more than one.
There was
for-
3 windows across that wall.
Oh, but they're all
Something
together.
Right,
They're
very
all-
small
they're all-
space
yeah.
between them, but there
Yeah.
was 3 windows each room.
Yeah, they had a bar between them, but I mean, the actual ones,
Yeah.
there were 3, like a picture window with 3 together.
Right.
So,
Right,
And for the heat and the cooling, it does have ducts.
yeah.
definitely.
It's already there, so it's not like you'd be blocking off the furnace from everybody else. It'd still be the ductwork overhead, but would transfer the heat out.
Right,
Yeah.
but if you had to do maintenance on those.
Right.
That would be-
they're in the corner, and I don't know, I mean, if you're building your office and you've got a heating unit in your office, and then they've got to come in and make repairs.
Or however loud it is, and you're talking to
And-
somebody.
yeah,
Yes. That was my concern. Because I have a lot of people coming in the office.
And so who gets the window? Either the rest of the office or so there, it's a little problematic, or do you knock another hole through the wall for another window?
Right.
So, I mean, it's not cut and dry.
One other question with regards to this map, this layout map, you know, it lists items, item number 1 through number whatever, 14, 15, 13. What do those refer back to?
The architect said that was
Okay,
with
so I have to go back to the previous folder.
No, it was in your building.
Oh, it's in here?
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, okay, that's what the items are. Oh, okay. So item 1 would refer back to description 1.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just wondering, because I kept looking at this and going like, oh.
Any other questions or concerns about the information? So we'll put this on our agenda for next Monday. And I don't know, somebody requested that when we make our vote, or prior to making our vote, that we each kind of say how we came to our decision.
When was that requested? I remember that.
Is that somebody's
I
federal
make-
requirement that
No,
I
it was just
So-
kind of
I thought that was something to do with the trails that we talked about.
That's what we did at the trail, so we should do it here as well.
Well, we were trying to do it at the trails, but it didn't, that didn't.
No,
happen.
No, it didn't
work.
I know I did.
Well,
I
it's
read
because
that
we
whole
all-
big long thing, and then
Yeah.
everybody said, let's vote.
Well,
Well, good chance
I think
mine
we should
is-
change, yeah, well, I think because things got changed.
But anyways, we'll have time to discuss our thought process if we choose to.
But we can say that these numbers with a couple of slight adjustments, we'll include those in new business documents, so they will get scanned and put online.
I think that's.
I have another question. What happens
On the cost analysis?
Yeah, just the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah,
good for the residents to
if
see
you
what
wanna get
it
with,
would cost.
Candy, so we get those correctly put down.
I think it's important for them to see what we're making a decision about, to spend that much money, or if we decide not to, of understanding.
And what the number is. I mean, you know.
And what happens if somebody doesn't want to come along, say like the senior center? Do they have a voice in any of this? Or is it just our decision?
We're the township board, we would make the decision.
Am I wrong to say the senior center doesn't want to
I
go
would-
along? I think it's pretty clear, right?
I would think that they would influence our decision, but,
Great.
so, but ultimately, we make the decision. Any other questions?
Did you, I don't know if it was on there. Oh, it was, wasn't it? The renovation cost for us to, one-time cost for here was $146,000. So that $46,600 was for the police station, to give
Oh.
them a
Well,
real
that's
locker
kind of good
room
news.
with showers.
That's something
Do
that
they
we
have
can
room
vote on
for
in the
that
future.
over?
Yes.
They have
That
room
we
for
could-
it there.
Yeah.
okay. I
We
didn't
can vote on
think
that in the near future, once we decide on this bound or anything. We can at least tell them that they're gonna be getting some upgrades over there regardless, one way or another, right?
They really, really, really need
We get a
it.
new
No.
paper sign.
Well, don't they
have it in their budget?
Yes, and it would be paid for out of their budget, as would their portion of Bel Air. This isn't all 101 money for Bel Air.
Yes.
It's because it's faded.
Because you can't read it.
Well,
It's
did you
not
see the
faded.
do not enter sign?
I know, it's just, but
That's
those are
worse.
small fixes.
The signs on the front of this building look as new as the day they were put up for municipal parking only. I looked at all those. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Which a handicap
Oh,
parking
yeah, I
spot.
know, the handicap
You have to
has been
squint to
like
see
that
it.
for 10
It's like
years.
it's from the 1800s.
No, there's no horse and buggy.
There's a lot of money.
Yeah. There's specific things that are worth keeping on that.
Well, there's definitely renovations that need to be done.
I agree with that. I agree.
But they're kind of, a lot of them are on hold until we make this decision.
Yeah, but some of them should have been done before now.
Well, the money was allocated in 2015 to renovate this building. New windows, all kinds of stuff. Just hasn't happened yet. And the generator's been put on hold because
Yeah.
we didn't find out we needed
What's-
more electricity.
What we have saved for is the generator in the parking lot. That's $70,000.
That's not what we allocated for when we made the motion. Discussion was that we were gonna re-brick the building where it needed fixed
Right,
and new
right.
windows,
But
and
that's-
new doors, which we got new doors.
But
Yeah, we got new doors.
that,
on it.
yeah,
That
that was
time-
said that that's what we need, but that there's not enough money in the fund to pay for that.
That's why I did think that there's not enough fund to renovate, there's
So we
somehow
need to-
enough money to buy this whole new building. I did, that doesn't make any sense.
There
No,
is
it's
money
just
to
not,
renovate.
it's not put into the designated fund for that purpose. Okay, anything else on the discussion item? Okay, so next on the agenda is the closed session to consider the purchase of real property.
And it's not by land.
Well, we put a caveat in there, we might talk about just the purchase price of it,
Right.
no other discussion.
People don't need to be worried about us going behind their backs and buying a building.
So would someone like to make a motion to move into closed session?
So, second.
I have a motion by trustee Marshall and it is seconded by trustee Cordella. And we need a roll call.
Cordella,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Broughton,
Yes.
Darnall,
Yes.
DePalma,
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes, motion carries unanimously, so we'll,
For those of you that don't want to stick around, thanks for coming out.
yes.
Get your feedback.
Move into closed session at this time.
So
we can break them up
We tried to get your candy dishes, but they're all behind.
Yeah,
closed
we went
windows.
searching for candy.
They are always behind, because I sometimes do that too at the meeting.
Can't sneak your way underneath class.
You can open it with your alarms.
I know I still go to the grocery store, and I have to go. I have to have popsicle treats for tomorrow.
You still make them?
Huh?
You still make them?
No, I have to buy popsicle
Okay.
treats for the school. But they have to be gluten-free and egg-free.
Is there gluten in popsicles?
Someone said that sometimes they put wheat in popsicles.
You never know unless you look.
Yep, you never know, it's amazing. Yep.
Yeah. Well, so much for my two pop session.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm done with the two pops.
Okay, at this time, we need to reconvene our meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to reconvene?
Wait a second.
Okay, I have a motion by trustee DePalma, and it is seconded by trustee Marshall to reconvene the meeting. And we need to do a roll call, please.
Marshall,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Broughton,
Yes.
Darnall,
Yes.
DePalma,
Yes.
Cordella,
Yes.
Thurman.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. We are now reconvened. Next on our agenda is to approve the closed session minutes as read in closed session. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those?
Is that Mr. Marshall?
Yes. Would someone like to second?
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Marshall, and it is seconded by trustee Cordella to approve the closed session minutes as was read in closed session. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And so now D, action on purchase of real property. There's no formal action on the purchase of property at this time. So then we can move on to item E. Item E is action on building department extension of probationary period.
I will make that motion as presented.
It's in here somewhere.
Very end, like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do have one question, and I just want to make this some clarification. This isn't because of poor performance, it's because there hasn't been enough work for her to actually be
Yeah, and I'll
assessed.
explain in a minute. That motion was brought in and it was seconded by Donnell. Okay. She's part-time. The job in the building department is, it's a hard job, and it involves a lot of detail, and she doesn't have a building background. And she's part-time. Our policy said the probationary period is 90 days, and
Right.
I think that's geared toward a full-time person. So she's only been in there half of the 90 days.
I just want to make sure that she knows it's not because of poor performance that she's getting extended.
She
Okay, all right.
has a good understanding.
Okay.
The building director talked to her, and he'd like to see how she does when in the summer or spring. Spring,
Yeah,
because
Yeah, in the
really
winter, you
busy
can't do as much.
Yeah,
building.
sure. I just want to make sure she knew that it wasn't for,
And our
lackluster
policy
performance.
allows us to extend up to another 90 days, so we're just asking to do that. Any other questions? I have a motion by trustee Broughton, and it is seconded by treasurer Darnell to extend Cindy Hawkins' introductory period for 90 days.
For another 90 days.
yeah.
It says period for 90 days, to extend it for 90 days. So that's in addition to the original.
No.
Okay, we don't need to do a roll call, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Right. Okay, so at this point, we will take citizens' comments on anything.
And how much time do we have? Do we have the
3
same
minutes.
amount of time you
3
made us
minutes.
wait?
Unfortunately,
I don't know, if you've got a pizza,
Otherwise,
we can
we'll
eat
be
pizza.
here. No, we'll be here till tomorrow night, so I have to buy us pizza tonight, breakfast tomorrow, lunch, and dinner.
Gee.
Okay, I'll speak, as you probably suspected. I just want to reiterate that I think it's absolutely critical that you know where our fund balance stands, and obviously nobody knows what the number is, because nobody could come up with it right now. Where our unfunded liabilities are, what that actual number is, and how we're going to pay for those. I think that's absolutely critical before you make any kind of a decision regarding this kind of money. I'm interested to know and hope that you will cover this at your next meeting. If you do move forward and decide this is something you want to do, how will it be financed? And will this require the approval of citizens? Are we talking a bond issue? Do you have cash in the bank? I mean, where are we going with this? I want to draw your attention to the notes at the end of the construction estimate. I think those are absolutely critical. I mean, they outline all the things that are not included. And the estimate, in their words, was due to a brief visit, which means they really don't know what they're looking at, and there's no design done. And I didn't see, and it may be called something else, but I didn't see dollars in the budget for design work. And I know when I was on the board before, we ran into that issue with the park and had to pay for it later. And it was not in the budget. So that's something critical we need to make sure is in there. We need to know about our remediation on this building and what the additional liability might be. That's critical to this issue. And a comment regarding a comment made by one of the trustees about speaking to citizens and getting their comments and saying, oh, well, they really don't understand or they don't know and we know better. I hate that comment. It's like big brother government, you elected us here and we're not going to listen to you. We're going to do what we think is best. And please don't do that. Please listen to the citizens. It's our money you're spending. And I really think it's critical that you hear what we have to say about it. And that we deserve that respect.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak since you waited so long? No? Okay. That concludes our citizens' comments, so at this point, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Would someone like to make that motion? All right, I have a motion by trustee Cordella to adjourn the meeting, and that is seconded by trustee DePalma. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay.